let's consider an argument from evolution. Now, we believe that evolution is a theory, and that's it. And we can get to that in another podcast. But let's say evolution is a fact. How would homosexuality stack up under the theory of revolution? There's a simple formula that I think paints a very stark picture, and that would be one gay man plus one gay man equals 0 children. And you can flip that around on the female side and you get the same thing. You can go back 10 generations and assume fertility rates for lesbian and straight women. You can calculate what would happen there. And even a slight difference would cause a homosexual gene to rapidly fade from the population. But you think about it this way. If the fertility rates were the same, how could women be considered lesbians if they were having the same amount of heterosexual sex to produce an equivalent number of children? So that paints a pretty stark picture. Even if a tendency toward homosexuality were genetic, every time that gene expressed itself, it would fall out of the gene pool.
Yeah, because evolution, the theory says, it's got to procreate, it's got to continue.
It's got to perpetuate, yes. Any genetics teacher, I think, that's worth their salt would kind of chuckle at the idea or the notion that homosexuality can be genetic if there is a mechanism for homosexuals to pass their genes on to their children as frequently as heterosexuals pass on genes to their children. So obviously, it doesn't stack up.
Right.
And so the evidence, which science considers to be king, right, does not support the notion that a person is born gay.
Yeah.
And that is an argument that we hear quite often, is that this is not a decision or a choice, but rather genetic. Science is about what is observable. And observation over a period of generations just does not support the claim that some individuals are born homosexuals based on their genetics. I have some information here. Geneticists have studied this issue extensively, and they have been unable to prove that homosexuality is genetic. Some have tried to skew the findings, and there's this man by the name of Simon LeVay who published a study that indicated subtle differences between the brains of homosexual and heterosexual men. And some took these findings and ran with them as so-called proof that a person is born gay. However, here is what Simon LeVay said himself. He said, "It's important to stress what I didn't find. I did not prove that homosexuality is genetic or find a genetic cause for being gay. I didn't show that gay men are born that way, the most common mistake that people make in interpreting my work, nor did I locate a gay center in the brain." So I think we need to be aware, I think everyone needs to be aware, if they're not already, that issues such as these have become perverted. Especially in the political climate that we're in today. And so we kind of venture into the extremes and we land there, or we want to be divisive and we can't have meaningful discussions about this without throwing out labels, right? If we disagree and we say that someone is choosing the homosexual lifestyle, that you're not born gay, that it's a sin, automatically homophobic.
Right.
Homophobia means
unloving, hateful, everything, all those labels.
Unreasonable, unjustified fear about homosexuality. No, not at all. Yeah. In fact, at Oldham Lane, where we minister at, we've had folks come our way that are in homosexual relationships, and we love them. And we want them to be at Oldham Lane. We say that all the time. No matter what sin it is in your life, we take you where you're at. Yeah. Jesus would take you where you're at.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't leave you there.
Exactly what he did.
Just wouldn't leave you there, right? Yeah. So all that to say that if you remove the politicking from it and all of that, you even try to remove the emotion from it and the prejudice from it, science just doesn't support this idea that a person is born gay or that there's some homosexual gene.
Well, and that's really significant because I think that's a prevailing myth. What's common becomes normal. So if that's a common thing said, repeated enough over time, we start to just assume that must be true so often.
Absolutely.
And so many things that we think we know and believe to be true. That right there solves that. That answers that kind of closes the case on that. And yet it's so obvious. Like we know that, but we never connected those dots, but once that's made clear, that really does a lot to that belief, that message, that God, which would mean if you believe in God, God actually created someone to be homosexual.
Yeah.
So you would have to not believe in God and believe that's evolution, which that wouldn't work,
Right.
or believe in God and say, and he created someone to be homosexual. And yet we see in Scripture that it's not, it's a sin, that it's not approved by God. He doesn't approve of it.
Now, can it be a product of your raising? Can it be a product of your environment? Can, a propensity towards homosexual, attraction, things like that, can that be a part of, those kind of factors? Yeah, I think probably so. That's very different than saying that someone is born a homosexual.